Liam Carter never imagined that walking into the wrong room at 6 a.m. would put him in the crosshairs of a corporate assassination plot. One accidental encounter with Scarlett Vaughn, the ice-cold billionaire CEO of next-gen technologies, should have ended his career on the spot. Instead, it triggered a chain of events that would force a struggling single father and an untouchable executive into an alliance neither of them saw coming, where trust became the only currency that mattered, and one split-second decision on a stage would change everything. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The alarm went off at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before Liam Carter actually needed to be awake. But he'd learned years ago that those 13 minutes were the difference between making it to his daughter's bedside before she woke up scared and finding her already crying in the dark. He rolled out of bed in the cramped studio apartment in South Brooklyn, feet hitting the cold linoleum, and moved through the practiced choreography of a man who'd been doing this alone for 3 years. Coffee first. Black, because milk was a luxury that disappeared too fast when you had a 5-year-old who'd only drink chocolate milk and nothing else. Then the shower, 2 minutes, cold at the end to shock himself into full consciousness because the radiator had been broken for a week and the landlord wasn't answering calls. By 5:20, he was dressed in the gray utility uniform with next-gen technologies, embroidered over the chest pocket, the fabric worn thin at the elbows but clean. He checked his phone. One new email. He opened it, stomach already tightening. Urgent. Electrical fault reported. Executive floor, Building A. Report immediately upon arrival. Priority level 1. Priority level 1 meant someone important was pissed off. Someone with enough pull to get maintenance called in before sunrise. Liam exhaled slowly, deleted the email, and walked into the small bedroom where Maya slept. She was curled up under her blanket, the pink one with the unicorns that was starting to fray at the edges. Her breathing was soft and even. He knelt beside her bed, smoothed her dark hair back from her forehead, and whispered, "I'll be back before you wake up, sweetheart. Mrs. Chen's right downstairs if you need anything." She didn't stir. He kissed her forehead, stood, grabbed his tool bag from beside the door, and left. The subway was nearly empty at this hour, just him and a handful of night shift workers heading home, their faces gray with exhaustion. Liam sat near the doors, tool bag between his feet, and stared at his reflection in the black window across from him. 32 years old, dark circles under his eyes that never quite went away. Stubble, he didn't have time to shave. He looked exactly like what he was, a man barely holding it together. Next-gen technologies rose up out of lower Manhattan like a glass and steel monument to the future. 47 floors of cutting-edge AI research, quantum computing labs, and enough wealth concentrated in one building to fund a small country. Liam had worked there for 2 years, invisible among the army of maintenance staff who kept the empire running, while the executives floated above them in climate-controlled offices that cost more than his annual salary. He swiped his badge at the employee entrance at 6:02 a.m. The security guard, Marco, who was decent enough to nod instead of ignoring him, waved him through without a word. The service elevator smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. Liam hit the button for the 45th floor and rode up in silence, running through the likely problems in his head. Electrical fault on the executive floor probably meant a tripped breaker or a shorted outlet. 10 minutes tops. He'd be out before anyone even arrived for the day. The elevator opened onto a hallway that looked like it belonged in a different building entirely. Polished marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Recessed lighting that probably cost more than his truck. Everything about this floor screamed, "You don't belong here," and Liam felt it in his bones every time he had to come up. He checked the work order on his phone. Conference room 4502, East Wing. He started walking, tool bag in hand, boots quiet on the marble. The problem became apparent before he even reached the conference room. The hallway lights were flickering in a pattern that suggested a loose connection somewhere in the junction box. Not a difficult fix, but annoying. He'd have to pull the panel, check each connection, probably replace a breaker. He was 3 steps from the conference room when he heard voices. 2 men speaking in low, urgent tones somewhere around the corner. Liam slowed, instinct telling him to wait. You didn't interrupt executive conversations. That was a rule you learned fast if you wanted to keep your job. "Can't keep covering for you," the first voice said. She's getting suspicious. Then make sure she doesn't have a reason to be. The second voice was colder, clipped. You're paid well enough to handle it. There are limits to what I can, There are no limits. You do what needs to be done, or you'll find yourself answering very uncomfortable questions. Do we understand each other? A pause. Then quieter. Yes. Footsteps. Liam pressed himself against the wall, suddenly very aware that he was somewhere he shouldn't be, hearing something he definitely shouldn't be hearing. The footsteps faded. He waited 30 seconds, then moved. Conference room 4-5. 02 was locked, but his master keycard got him in. The room was dark except for the ambient light from the windows. He found the electrical panel on the north wall, popped it open, and started checking connections. Loose neutral on circuit 7. He tightened it, checked the breaker, tested the current. The flickering stopped. 5 minutes, start to finish. He was closing the panel when he heard the door open behind him. Maintenance was supposed to be here an hour ago. Liam turned. The woman standing in the doorway was maybe 30, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of his rent. Dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but definitely wasn't. She had a tablet in one hand, and the kind of posture that suggested she was used to people jumping when she walked into a room. I got here as fast as I could, ma'am, Liam said. The issue's fixed. Loose connection in the panel. Shouldn't have any more problems. She looked at him for a long moment, and Liam had the uncomfortable sensation of being evaluated like a piece of equipment that might or might not be worth keeping. You're new, she said. 2 years. That's new. She glanced at the panel, then back at him. Name? Liam Carter, ma'am. Stop calling me ma'am. I'm not your grandmother. She turned, heading for the door. Make sure the lights in the hallway are stable. I have meetings here all day, and I don't want them flickering like a horror movie. Yes, He caught himself. Yes. She paused at the door, looked back. You do good work, Carter. Keep it up. Then she was gone. Liam exhaled, packed up his tools, and left the conference room. He spent another 20 minutes checking every connection in the hallway junction boxes, making sure everything was perfect, because something about that woman's tone suggested that good work was a compliment she didn't give often, and he didn't want to screw it up. By 7 a.m., he was back in the service elevator, heading down. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Chen. Maya's up. Fed her breakfast. She's asking for you. He typed back, on my way. Thanks. The subway ride back to Brooklyn felt longer than usual, Liam's mind turning over the conversation he'd overheard. She's getting suspicious. Who was she? And suspicious about what? He tried to push it out of his head. Not his business, not his world. He was just the guy who fixed the lights. Maya was waiting for him when he got home, still in her pajamas, cereal bowl in front of her at the tiny kitchen table. She grinned when he walked in. Daddy? He scooped her up, hugged her tight. Hey, sweetheart, you been good for Mrs. Chen? Uh-huh. She made me toast. That's great. He set her down, ruffled her hair. You ready for school? Do I have to go? You do, but I'll pick you up right after, and we'll get pizza. How's that sound? Her face lit up. With extra cheese? With extra cheese. Getting her ready was its own kind of organized chaos. Finding clean clothes, brushing her hair while she squirmed and complained, packing her backpack with the homework she'd finished the night before. By 8:15, they were out the door, walking the 4 blocks to PS 118. Liam dropped her off at the gate, watched her run inside with the other kids, then turned and headed back. He had 3 hours before his next shift started at noon. 3 hours to sleep, maybe, or catch up on the bills that were stacking up on the kitchen counter. He did neither. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and stared at the calendar on the wall. Maya's birthday was in 2 weeks. She'd been asking for a bike. A real one. Not the hand-me-down with the wobbly wheels she'd been riding for the past year. He'd been saving, but the math wasn't working out. A decent bike was $200, minimum. He had $73 in the account. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then answered. Mr. Carter? A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Speaking. This is Amanda Cross from NextGen HR. I'm calling to inform you of a change in your assignment, effective immediately. Liam's stomach dropped. A change? You're being transferred to the executive services team. Your new shift begins tomorrow at 6 a.m., executive floor. Your salary will be adjusted accordingly. Details are in the email I just sent. Do you have any questions? Oi. He stared at the wall, phone pressed to his ear, brain trying to process what he just heard. What? You've been reassigned. The executive floor specifically requested you. Congratulations, Mr. Carter. Who requested me? That information isn't disclosed. Your supervisor will brief you tomorrow morning. Again, congratulations. The line went dead. Liam set the phone down slowly, opened his email. The message from HR was there. Official next-gen letterhead, everything spelled out in corporate language. New position, new responsibilities, new salary. $68,000 a year. He read it 3 times. His current salary was $32,000. This was more than double. This was enough to get Maya that bike and fix the radiator and maybe start putting something away for her future instead of just scraping by every month. This didn't make sense. People like him didn't get promotions like this. Maintenance guys didn't get pulled up to the executive floor with a salary bump that changed everything. Not unless someone upstairs wanted something from them, or knew something about them, or... He thought about the woman in the conference room. You do good work, Carter. And then he thought about the conversation he'd overheard. She's getting suspicious. He should have felt relieved, grateful. Instead, he felt a cold knot of unease settling in his chest, the kind that told him he'd just stepped into something much bigger than a broken circuit and a flickering hallway light. But $68,000 was $68,000. And Maya needed that bike. He closed the email, finished his coffee, and tried not to think about what he might be walking into. Bank. The next morning, Liam arrived at NextGen at 5:50 a.m., 10 minutes early, because showing up late to your first day on a new assignment was a good way to get fired before you even started. He badged in through the employee entrance, but instead of heading to the service elevator, he followed the directions in the HR email. Main lobby, executive elevator bank, 45th floor. The main lobby was a cathedral of glass and steel, 3 stories high, with a water feature in the center that probably cost more than his entire apartment building. At this hour, it was nearly empty. Liam crossed to the elevators, feeling absurdly out of place in his utility uniform. He rode up alone, watching the floor numbers climb. 30, 35, 40. The elevator was silent except for the faint hum of the machinery. 45. The doors opened. A man was waiting for him. Mid-50s, gray suit, wire-rimmed glasses. He had a tablet in one hand and the look of someone who'd been doing this job long enough to be deeply tired of it. Carter? Yes, sir. Derek Huang, facilities manager for executive services. Follow me. Moi. They walked. Huang moved fast, talking without looking back. You'll be responsible for all maintenance issues on floors 43 through 47. Anything from HVAC to electrical to plumbing. Response time is critical. When someone up here has a problem, it gets fixed immediately. Understood? Dupam. Understood. You'll have access to all executive areas except private offices unless specifically called in. Your badge has been updated. You report directly to me, but you'll also take requests from executive assistants. Prioritize based on who's asking. If it's the C-suite, it's priority 1. Everyone else can wait. They turned a corner into a section Liam hadn't seen before. More offices, glass-walled, most of them still dark. Your workspace is here. Huang stopped at a small room, more of a closet, really, with a desk, a computer, and a wall of tools and equipment. You're on call from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Overtime is needed. Questions? Liam had about 100 questions, but he asked the only one that mattered. Who requested me for this position? Huang looked at him for the first time, something unreadable in his expression. Above my pay grade, Carter. But if I were you, I'd do everything possible not to screw it up. He handed over a folder. Schedule's in there. First assignment's already waiting. Office 4701, temperature control issue. Get on it. Then he was gone. Liam stood in the small workspace, folder in hand, trying to shake the feeling that he'd just been dropped into the deep end without a life jacket. Office 47. A one was at the end of the east corridor, behind a glass door with no nameplate. Liam knocked, got no response, used his keycard to enter. The office was freezing, literally. The thermostat read 58 degrees and he could see his breath in the air. The problem was obvious. Someone had cranked the AC to maximum and then apparently forgotten about it. He adjusted the thermostat, checked the vents, made sure everything was functioning properly. 10 minutes. He was finishing up when the door opened. The woman who walked in stopped short when she saw him. It was the same woman from the conference room. Up close, in better light, Liam could see she was younger than he'd thought. Maybe late 20s, early 30s. Dark eyes, sharp features, the kind of face that didn't give anything away. She was carrying a leather bag in one hand and a coffee in the other, and she looked like she'd been awake for approximately 3 minutes. "What are you doing in my office?" "Temperature control issue," Liam said, keeping his voice neutral. "It's fixed now. Thermostat was set too low." She walked to her desk, set down the bag and coffee, and looked at him. Really looked, like she was trying to place him. "You're the one from yesterday, the conference room." "Yes, ma'am." He caught himself. "Yes. What's your name again?" "Liam Carter." She nodded slowly, processing. "You're the new maintenance lead for this floor, see?" It wasn't a question. Liam didn't know how to respond, so he just said, "Yes, good." She sat down, opened her laptop. "I expect problems to be fixed before I know they exist. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Trying isn't good enough up here." She looked at him, and there was something in her gaze that made Liam feel like he was being dissected. "You either do it, or you don't. Which is it?" He met her eyes. "I'll do it." "Then we won't have any problems." She turned her attention to her laptop, fingers already flying across the keyboard. "Close the door on your way out." Liam left. Over the next week, he learned the rhythms of the executive floor. The early mornings when only a handful of people were in, moving through the hallways like ghosts. The mid-morning rush when meetings started and the pace accelerated into something frantic. The afternoons when tension crackled through the air like static electricity, everyone on edge, phones ringing constantly. He learned names. Derek Huang, his boss, who was perpetually stressed and lived on coffee and antacids. Monica Reyes, the head of executive operations, who smiled like a shark and never forgot a face. James Park, the CFO, who had a corner office and a habit of throwing things when quarterly numbers came in wrong. And Scarlett Vaughn, that was her name. He learned it the second day when one of the other maintenance guys mentioned it in passing. "Careful around 4701, the guy had said. "That's Scarlett Vaughn's office." "She's a piece of work." "What do you mean?" "CEO of the whole damn company. Youngest billionaire on the East Coast. Doesn't tolerate screw-ups." Last guy who messed up her coffee order got reassigned to the mailroom. Liam had nodded, filed the information away, and made a mental note to be very, very careful around Office 4701. But Scarlett didn't seem interested in making his life difficult. In fact, she barely seemed to notice him. He was in and out of her office a dozen times that first week, adjusting the blinds, fixing a stuck drawer, replacing a burnt-out bulb, and she acknowledged him maybe twice. The rest of the time she was on calls, in meetings, staring at her laptop with the kind of focus that suggested the rest of the world had ceased to exist. He started to understand why they called her cold. There was something untouchable about her, like she'd built walls so high that nothing could get through. She didn't do small talk, didn't smile, didn't engage unless absolutely necessary. It was like watching someone operate on a completely different frequency from everyone else. On Friday of that first week, Liam was called to her office at 7 p.m., late enough that most of the floor had cleared out. The problem was the coffee maker, a high-end espresso machine that had stopped working mid-brew. He found her standing at the window, phone pressed to her ear, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. She didn't turn when he came in. "Don't care what this board thinks," she was saying, voice clipped. "If they wanted a say in this decision, they should have been paying attention 6 months ago. Move forward with the acquisition. I'll handle the fallout." She ended the call, set the phone down, finally looked at him. "Coffee maker's broken." "I'll take a look." "What?" He knelt beside the machine, started diagnosing. Clogged filter, mostly. Simple fix. He pulled the filter, cleaned it, reassembled everything, ran a test cycle. Perfect espresso, dark and steaming. Fixed. Thank you. She was back at her desk, signing something on a tablet. Liam started packing up his tools. He should have left, should have walked out and gone home to Maya, who was waiting with Mrs. Chen, but something made him pause. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Scarlett looked up, one eyebrow raised. You can ask. Why me? Elaborate. Why did you request me for this position? I'm nobody. I fix lights and unclog sinks. There are guys with 10 times my experience who would kill for this job. So why me? She set down the tablet, leaned back in her chair. For a long moment, she didn't say anything, just studied him with those dark, unreadable eyes. You walked into a conference room at 6 in the morning, she finally said. Fixed a problem in 5 minutes. Didn't ask unnecessary questions, didn't waste time. And when I spoke to you, you didn't try to impress me or kiss up to me. You just did your job. She paused. That's rarer than you'd think up here. That's it? No. She picked up the tablet again. You also didn't panic when you overheard a private conversation in the hallway. Most people would have run. You stayed calm. That tells me you can be trusted to keep your mouth shut when necessary. Liam's blood went cold. You knew I was there. I know everything that happens on this floor, Carter. She didn't look up. Now, are you finished asking questions, or do you have more? He should have been angry. Should have felt violated or manipulated or something other than the strange sense of relief that washed over him. She knew. She'd known from the beginning, and she'd still given him the job. No more questions. Good. Close the door on your way out. He did. That weekend, he bought Maya the bike. It was blue with white streamers on the handlebars, exactly what she'd wanted. Her face when she saw it, pure joy, the kind that made everything else worth it, was enough to push away the lingering unease about Scarlett Vaughn and the conversation he'd overheard and the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something he didn't fully understand. On Monday, he was back on the 45th floor at 6 a.m. sharp. The week started like the one before. Routine maintenance calls, minor repairs, the endless rhythm of keeping the executive floor running smoothly. On Tuesday afternoon, he was replacing a ceiling tile in the east corridor when he heard raised voices from one of the conference rooms. Completely unacceptable. A man's voice, loud and angry. We had an agreement. Agreements change. That was Scarlett, calm and cold. The terms are no longer favorable. We're moving in a different direction. You can't do this. I already have. This meeting is over. The conference room door slammed open. A man stormed out, 50s, expensive suit, red-faced with fury. He nearly ran into Liam, didn't apologize, just kept walking. Scarlett emerged a moment later. She saw Liam on the ladder, stopped. Did you hear that? No point in lying. Yes. Yes. Good. If anyone asks, this conversation never happened. Understood? Understood. She walked away. Liam finished replacing the tile, climbed down from the ladder, and tried not to think too hard about what he'd just witnessed. But it was getting harder to ignore the pattern. Scarlett was making enemies. And from what he could tell, she didn't care. Wednesday night, he was working late, a plumbing issue in one of the executive bathrooms that turned out to be more complicated than expected. It was past 8 p.m. by the time he finished. Most of the floor was dark, offices empty, except 4701. The light was still on. Liam walked past, glanced in through the glass wall. Scarlett was at her desk, head in her hands, shoulders hunched in a way that looked nothing like the composed, untouchable CEO he'd been watching all week. For just a moment, she looked exhausted, human. Then she straightened, rolled her shoulders back, and the walls went up again. Liam kept walking. On Thursday, Derek Huang called him into his office. Close the door. Liam did. Huang looked worse than usual, more tired, more stressed, like he was holding on to his composure by a thread. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest. Has anyone approached you about Scarlett Vaughn? What do you mean, approached me? Asked you questions about her schedule, her meetings, her habits, anything? No. Why? Huang rubbed his face. There's been a security concern. I can't give you details. But if anyone asks you about Ms. Vaughn, you report it to me immediately. Don't engage, don't answer questions, just come straight to me. Clear? Guitar spice. Clear. Good. Huang waved him away. Get back to work. Liam left, the cold knot of unease in his chest pulling tighter. That night, after he'd put Maya to bed and was sitting alone in the dark kitchen, he thought about quitting, about walking away from the $68,000 and the executive floor and Scarlett Vaughn's world before he got pulled any deeper. But then he thought about the bike in Maya's room and the fact that he'd actually been able to pay the electric bill on time this month, and the way his daughter had hugged him that morning and said, "You're the best daddy ever." He didn't quit. Friday morning, 6:15 a.m., Liam was checking the HVAC system in the server room when his phone buzzed. Text from Huang, Office 4701, now. He dropped what he was doing and ran. Scarlett's office door was open. She was inside, standing perfectly still, staring at her desk. Someone had left a message there, written in red marker across the pristine white surface. "You're next." Liam stopped in the doorway. "What?" "Don't touch anything." Scarlett's voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something that might have been fear if she'd allowed herself to feel it. "Security's on their way." She turned, looked at him. "How long have you been on this floor this morning?" "Since 6. I was in the server room." "Anyone with you?" "No." "Did you see anyone enter or leave this office?" "No." She nodded, processing. The security team arrived, 3 guys in suits with earpieces, moving with the kind of efficiency that suggested this wasn't their first emergency. They cleared the office, took photos of the desk, started asking questions. Liam stood in the hallway, watching through the glass. Scarlett answered every question with the same calm composure, like someone had just spilled coffee instead of leaving a death threat on her desk. When security finally left, she walked out of her office, closed the door behind her, and looked at Liam. "I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Keep your eyes open. If you see anything unusual, anyone who doesn't belong, anything out of place, you tell me immediately. Not security, not Huang, me." "Why me?" "Because you're the only person on this floor I'm certain isn't trying to kill me." She said it so matter-of-factly that it took Liam a moment to process. "You think someone here is behind this?" "I don't think, I know." She glanced back at her office. "The question is who? Shouldn't you go to the police?" "The police can't help me. Not with this." She turned back to him. "Can I trust you, Carter?" It was the same question she'd asked with her eyes a dozen times over the past 2 weeks. But this time she was asking with words. This time it mattered. "Yes." "Then keep your eyes open." She walked away, heels clicking on the marble floor, leaving Liam standing in the hallway with the weight of something he didn't fully understand pressing down on his shoulders. He thought about the conversation he'd overheard on his first day. She's getting suspicious. And he realized, with cold certainty, that whatever he'd walked into was about to get a whole lot worse. The weekend felt longer than usual. Liam spent Saturday at the park with Maya, pushing her on the swings while his mind kept circling back to that message on Scarlett's desk. Red marker, block letters, the kind of threat that wasn't supposed to exist in his world of broken thermostats and flickering lights. Maya's laughter pulled him back. She was pumping her legs, trying to go higher, her hair flying behind her. "Look, Daddy, I'm flying!" "Oh," he forced a smile. "I see you, sweetheart. You're doing great." But even as he watched her, part of him was already back in that office, watching Scarlett's face as she stared at those words. She hadn't flinched, hadn't showed even a flicker of the fear that most people would have felt. Just that cold, calculating look like she was already 3 steps ahead, planning her next move. On Sunday night after Maya was asleep, Liam sat at the kitchen table with his phone, staring at Scarlett's number. She'd given it to him Friday afternoon, just before he'd left for the day. "In case you see something," she'd said. Nothing more. He didn't call. What would he even say? He hadn't seen anything. Just a growing sense that the ground beneath his feet was less stable than it had been 3 weeks ago. Monday morning came too fast. Liam dropped Maya at school, rode the subway into Manhattan, and badged into NextGen at 5:55 a.m. The building felt different now. God, every face in the lobby looked suspicious. Every shadow in the hallway could be hiding something. He took the elevator to 45, stepped out into the quiet corridor. The lights were dim, motion activated, flickering on as he walked. His workspace was exactly as he'd left it. He checked his schedule. Routine maintenance calls, nothing urgent. At 6:30, his phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Conference room 4515, water leak, bring towels. He grabbed his tools and a stack of industrial towels from the supply closet, headed down the hallway. Conference room 4515 was at the far end of the west wing, one of the smaller meeting spaces. The door was closed. He knocked, got no response, used his key card. The room was empty. No water leak, no problem at all. Liam stood in the doorway, every instinct screaming at him to leave. But before he could move, he heard footsteps behind him. Mr. Carter, Barracks. He turned. A woman stood in the hallway, mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back, wearing a navy suit that looked expensive but not ostentatious. She had the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. I don't believe we've met. I'm Victoria Hayes, VP of Strategic Development. Ma'am? Liam kept his voice neutral. I got a call about a water leak, but there's nothing here. Yes, I know. I sent that message. She walked closer, and Liam noticed she was holding a tablet. I wanted to speak with you privately. Every word Huang had said echoed in his head. If anyone approaches you about Scarlett Vaughn, you report it immediately. About what? About Ms. Vaughn. Victoria's smile widened slightly. You've been working closely with her these past few weeks. I imagine you've observed quite a bit. I fix things, that's all. Of course, but in the process of fixing things, you're in her office frequently. You see her schedule, her habits, who she meets with. Victoria tilted her head. That kind of access is valuable. Liam's grip tightened on his tool bag. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. I'm not selling anything. I'm offering you an opportunity. She tapped something on her tablet, turned it to face him. A bank account statement. His bank account statement. $68,000 is a significant improvement over 32, but it's still not much when you have a daughter to raise in Brooklyn. Childcare, school expenses, medical bills. It adds up. The cold anger that had been building in Liam's chest since Friday crystallized into something sharp and focused. How did you get that? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that I can make those numbers much bigger. All you have to do is answer a few simple questions from time to time. Ms. Vaughn's calendar, her meetings, nothing that would hurt anyone. You want me to spy on her. I want you to be smart about your future, your daughter's future. Victoria's voice softened, became almost sympathetic. You're a good father, Mr. Carter. I can see that. You work hard. You sacrifice, you do everything right. But sometimes doing everything right isn't enough. Sometimes you need to be practical. Liam took a step back. I need to get back to work. A step. Think about it. You know where to find me when you're ready to talk. She pocketed the tablet, walked past him toward the elevators. He stood there for a full minute after she left, heart hammering in his chest, trying to process what had just happened. Then he pulled out his phone and called the only number that mattered. Scarlett answered on the second ring. What is it? We need to talk. In person. Where are you? Conference room 4515. Stay there. Oh. She arrived 3 minutes later, moving fast, her heels clicking on the marble like gunshots. She walked into the conference room, closed the door behind her, and looked at him. Talk. Liam told her everything. The fake maintenance call, Victoria Hayes, the bank statement, the offer. Scarlett listened without interrupting, her face giving nothing away. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Did you agree to anything? No. Did you take any money? No. Good. She pulled out her phone, typed something quickly. Victoria Hayes has been gunning for my position for 2 years. She's smart, connected, and patient. This is exactly her style. Find a weakness, exploit it quietly. She had my bank records. She has connections in every department, including HR. Scarlett looked up from her phone. How much did she offer? She didn't name a number, just implied it would be substantial. It would be. She has access to discretionary funds that don't show up on any official budget. Scarlett pocketed her phone. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to her. Tell her you're interested. String her along. Find out what she's really after. Liam stared at her. You want me to be a double agent? I want you to help me figure out who's trying to kill me. Victoria might be pulling the strings, or she might just be opportunistic. Either way, she knows something. I'm a maintenance guy. I'm not trained for this. No, you're not. But you're honest, and you're smart enough to know when someone's trying to manipulate you. That's more than I can say for most people in this building. She crossed her arms. I'm not going to force you. If you want out, say so now. I'll have you transferred back to your old position. No questions asked. But it would be so easy to say yes, to walk away from this mess, go back to fixing lights in the basement, pretend he'd never heard Victoria Hayes' voice or seen that message on Scarlett's desk. But he thought about Maya, about the bike, and the bills he'd finally been able to pay on time, and the way Scarlett had looked at him Friday when she'd asked if she could trust him. What do you need me to do? Something that might have been relief flickered across Scarlett's face, gone so fast he almost missed it. Go to Victoria. Tell her you've thought about it and you're willing to help. But you need assurances, protection, a paper trail that keeps you clean if anything goes wrong. Make her work for it. The more desperate she gets, the more she'll reveal. And if she doesn't buy it, then we'll know she's smarter than I thought and we'll try something else. Scarlett moved toward the door. One more thing. From this point forward, you don't trust anyone on this floor except me. Not Derek Wong, not security, no one. Understood? What about you? Should I trust you? She paused, hand on the door. That's up to you, Carter. Then she was gone. Liam spent the rest of Monday in a state of controlled tension, going through the motions of his job while his mind raced ahead. He fixed a stuck window in office 4608, replaced a faulty power strip in the break room, checked the air filters in the server room. All routine, all meaningless. At 4 p.m., he sent a text to the number Victoria had called from. We should talk. The response came within seconds. My office, 4520. Now. Victoria's office was smaller than Scarlett's, but just as carefully curated. Modern art on the walls. A glass desk with nothing on it except a laptop and a single orchid in a ceramic pot. She was standing out the window when he arrived, looking out at the city. I'm glad you reconsidered, she said without turning around. I want guarantees. Smart man. She turned, gestured to the chair across from her desk. Sit. He sat. She remained standing, a power play he recognized even if he didn't fully understand it. What kind of guarantees are we talking about? She asked. Nothing in writing that ties me to this. Nothing that could come back on me if things go wrong. And I want the money up front, in cash, so there's no paper trail. Victoria smiled. You've thought about this. I have a daughter to protect. Of course. She walked to her desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. $5,000, cash. Consider it a signing bonus. You'll get another $5 after your first delivery. Liam took the envelope, felt the weight of it. More money than he'd ever held at one time. Enough to wipe out his credit card debt and put something away for Maya's college fund. He set it on the desk. What do you want to know? For now? Just her schedule, meetings, calls, appointments, anything that gives me insight into what she's planning. Victoria sat down, laced her fingers together. She's making moves, acquisitions, restructuring strategic partnerships. I need to stay ahead of her. That's it? Just her calendar? To start. If things go well, we might expand the arrangement. She pushed the envelope back toward him. Take it. You've earned it. He pocketed the envelope, stood. I'll be in touch. Mr. Carter? Victoria's voice stopped him at the door. I hope you understand that discretion is essential. If Miss Vaughn finds out about our arrangement, it won't just be your job at risk. People who betray her have a habit of encountering very unfortunate circumstances. It sounded like a warning. It felt like a threat. Understood, Liam said, and left. He went straight to Scarlett's office. She was on a call, waved him in without breaking stride in her conversation. Don't care if it's inconvenient. Make it happen by Wednesday or find someone who can. She ended the call, looked at him. Well? He set the envelope on her desk. $5,000. She wants your schedule. Meetings, calls, appointments. Scarlett opened the envelope, flipped through the bills. She's testing you. seeing if you'll actually follow through. She closed the envelope, pushed it back toward him. Keep it. What? You need to look the part. If you turn down the money, she'll know something's wrong. Scarlett leaned back in her chair. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a modified schedule, real meetings, but nothing sensitive. Enough truth to make it believable, but nothing she can actually use against me. You pass it to Victoria, collect your payment, and we see what her next move is. You're using me as bait, bite. I'm using you as an asset. There's a difference. She pulled up her calendar on her laptop, started typing. You said you wanted guarantees. Here's one. As long as you're helping me, I'll make sure nothing happens to you or your daughter. You have my word on that. Liam didn't know why, but he believed her. Over the next week, he fell into a rhythm that felt increasingly surreal. Mornings were spent doing actual maintenance work, fixing broken equipment, troubleshooting technical issues, keeping the executive floor running. Afternoons were reserved for his other job, the one that involved passing carefully curated information to Victoria Hayes and collecting cash payments that were starting to pile up in the back of his closet. Maya noticed the change, not the specifics, but the general shape of it. He was coming home less stressed, more present. He could afford to take her to the movies on a Wednesday night just because. Buy her the fancy markers she wanted for art class without checking his bank account first. Daddy, are we rich now? She asked one night over dinner. He almost laughed. No, sweetheart. We're just doing a little better. Good. I like it when you smile more. That hit harder than it should have. On Thursday of the second week, Scarlett called him into her office at 7 p.m. The floor was mostly empty, just a few workaholics still grinding away in their offices. She closed the door behind him, pulled the blinds. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where someone's been accessing my private server. She turned her laptop to face him. The screen showed a security log, lines of code and timestamps that meant nothing to Liam. 3 separate intrusions in the past week, all from inside the building, all using credentials that shouldn't exist. Victoria? Probably, but I can't prove it. She closed the laptop. Here's what I need you to find out. Next time she asks for information, tell her you can get access to my personal files. See if she bites. And if she does, then we'll know for certain she's the one behind the security breaches, and we can start building a case. Scarlett stood, walked to the window. The board meeting is in 2 weeks. If Victoria's going to make a move, it'll be before then. She needs leverage, something she can use to undermine me publicly. Liam watched her stare out at the city, silhouetted against the lights. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked tired. Actually tired, not just the cosmetic exhaustion of a long workday. Can I ask you something? He said. You can ask. Why are you doing this? Fighting this hard, I mean. You're already a billionaire. You could walk away tomorrow, live anywhere, do anything. Why stay in a place where people are trying to kill you? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Because if I walk away, they win. Every person who ever told me I was too young, too female, too aggressive, too everything, they all get to be right. She turned to face him. I built this company from nothing. I'm not going to let someone take it from me just because they're willing to play dirty, even if it costs you your life. Especially then. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Besides, I don't plan on dying. I plan on winning. Liam left her office feeling something he couldn't quite name, respect maybe, or recognition. The sense that he was watching someone who understood what it meant to fight for something, consequences be damned. On Friday, he approached Victoria with the bait Scarlett had prepared. I might be able to get you more than just her calendar, he said, standing in her office doorway. Victoria looked up from her laptop. I'm listening. She keeps personal files on her private server, confidential stuff. Acquisition targets, strategic plans, things she doesn't share with anyone. He paused, making it look like he was wrestling with his conscience. I can access it during maintenance checks, but it's risky. How risky? If I get caught, I'm done. Fired, blacklisted, maybe worse. Victoria stood, walked around her desk. What would it take to make that risk worthwhile? Well, it's yes, 20,000 cash. An assurance that if this goes wrong, you'll protect me. She studied him for a long moment, and Liam felt the weight of her scrutiny like a physical thing. Then she smiled. You'll have your money by Monday. And Mr. Carter, you're making a very smart decision. He left her office, went straight to the men's room, locked himself in a stall, and tried to steady his breathing. This was getting out of control. He was in too deep, playing a game he didn't understand with stakes he couldn't afford. His phone buzzed. Text from Scarlett. Did she take it? He typed back, yes. Good. We're almost there. That weekend passed in a blur. Liam tried to be present for Maya. Playground, ice cream, a movie about talking animals. But his mind kept drifting back to Monday, to what would happen when Victoria realized he couldn't actually deliver what he'd promised. Monday morning, 6 a.m. He was at his workspace when Derek Huang walked in, looking worse than usual. Carter, we need to talk. About what? Security's been monitoring server access. There have been irregularities. Huang closed the door. I need to know if you've noticed anything unusual. Anyone accessing systems they shouldn't be. Liam's stomach dropped. No, nothing. Huang studied him with red-rimmed eyes. You sure about that? I'm sure. Because if you're involved in something you shouldn't be, now's the time to come clean, before it gets worse. I'm not involved in anything. Huang didn't look convinced, but he nodded. All right, just keep your eyes open. And Carter, be careful who you trust around here. After he left, Liam sat in the small workspace, staring at the wall. The walls were closing in. Scarlett on one side, Victoria on the other, Huang asking questions he couldn't answer. And somewhere in the middle, someone who wanted Scarlett dead. At 10 a.m., Victoria called him to her office. Change of plans, she said as soon as he walked in. I need you to do something for me tonight, after hours. What? There's a file on Scarlett's laptop. It's encrypted, backed up to her private cloud. I need you to install a keylogger on her computer so we can capture the password. That's way beyond what we agreed to. The agreement changed when you offered me access to her files. Victoria's voice hardened. You'll have the software by this afternoon. Install it during your evening maintenance check. It'll take less than a minute. And if I get caught, you won't. You're good at your job, Mr. Carter. I have faith in you. She dismissed him with a wave. Liam went straight to Scarlett's office. She was in a meeting, so he waited in the hallway, trying to look casual while his mind raced. When she finally emerged, he caught her eye. She read something in his expression, made a quick excuse to the executive she'd been talking to, and pulled Liam into an empty conference room. What happened? He told her. Everything. The keylogger, the timeline, Victoria's escalating demands. Scarlett listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When he finished, she pulled out her phone, sent a quick text. Here's what's going to happen, she said. You're going to install that keylogger exactly as Victoria instructed. What? No, that's on a laptop I'm going to give you, not my real one. A duplicate. She looked at him. We're going to feed her exactly what she wants to see. And when she makes her move, we're going to be ready. This is crazy. This is chess, Carter, and she just moved her queen into a very exposed position. Scarlett's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked back at him. Can you do this? Yes or no? Every rational part of Liam's brain screamed at him to say no, to walk away, take Maya, disappear into a different life where billionaire CEOs and corporate espionage were just things he saw in movies. But he thought about the way Scarlett had looked at him when she'd asked if she could trust him, the way she'd promised to protect his daughter, the way she refused to back down, even with death threats, and sabotage, and people trying to tear her down. Yes, he said, I can do it. That night, Liam stayed late. The executive floor was empty by 8 p.m., just him and the hum of the HVAC system. Scarlett had given him the duplicate laptop that afternoon, identical to her real one, down to the scratches on the casing and the stickers on the lid. He went to her office, swapped the laptops, and installed Victoria's keylogger software on the duplicate. The whole process took 90 seconds. When he was done, he texted Victoria. "It's done." Her response came immediately. "Good work. Your payment will be ready tomorrow." Liam stared at the message, feeling dirty in a way that had nothing to do with the grime on his hands from a day's worth of maintenance work. He went home to Maya, paid Mrs. Chen, and spent the evening reading stories about princesses and dragons until his daughter fell asleep in his arms. He carried her to bed, tucked her in, and sat in the dark living room with a beer he didn't drink, wondering how he'd ended up here. His phone buzzed. Text from Scarlett. "Thank you." Just those 2 words, but they felt like an anchor in the chaos. The next 2 days were a study in controlled paranoia. Liam went through his normal routine, maintenance calls, repairs, endless small tasks, while waiting for something to break, Victoria to figure out the deception, security to catch on, the whole house of cards to collapse. But nothing happened. Victoria paid him the $20,000 in cash, looking pleased. Scarlett continued her work, unfazed. The executive floor kept spinning. On Wednesday afternoon, Scarlett called him into her office. "She took the bait," Scarlett said without preamble. "Victoria accessed the fake files last night, downloaded everything. What was in them? A fabricated acquisition plan. Makes it look like I'm planning a hostile takeover of one of our biggest competitors, using methods that are legally questionable at best." Scarlett pulled up something on her laptop. "She's going to leak this to the board, probably at Friday's meeting. And then what? And then I'll prove it's fabricated, show that she planted evidence, and watch her career implode." Scarlett closed the laptop. "But there's a problem." "What?" "I got another message this morning." She pulled out her phone, showed him a photo. It was a picture of the executive parking garage. Scarlett's car, a black Mercedes, was in the center of the frame. Someone had keyed a message into the paint on the driver's side door. "Last warning." Liam felt his blood run cold. "You need to go to the police. I need to finish this." She pocketed the phone. "We're close, Carter. Victoria's about to overplay her hand. When she does, I'll have everything I need to take her down and find out who's really behind all this. And if you're wrong, if she's not the one making threats, then I'll deal with that when it happens." She looked at him. "I need you at the board meeting Friday. Officially, you'll be there for AV support. Unofficially, you'll be my witness." "Witness to what?" "Whatever happens when Victoria makes her move." Liam wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was insane, that she was gambling with her life over corporate politics, that none of this was worth it. But he just said, "I'll be there." Friday morning came with unseasonable rain, the kind that turned Manhattan into a gray watercolor. Liam got to NextGen early, checked the AV equipment in the executive boardroom 3 times, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The board members started arriving at 9:30. 11 people, mostly men in their 50s and 60s, the kind who looked like they'd been rich their entire lives and couldn't imagine being anything else. Victoria was there too, seated near the head of the table, looking confident. Scarlett arrived last, at exactly 10 a.m. She wore a charcoal suit, her hair pulled back, every inch the composed CEO. She sat at the head of the table, opened her laptop, and called the meeting to order. Liam stood in the back corner, hands clasped behind him, trying to be invisible. The first hour was routine, quarterly reports, budget discussions, strategic updates. Liam understood maybe a third of what was being said. The rest was corporate jargon that might as well have been a foreign language. Then Victoria made her move. "Before we adjourn," she said, her voice cutting through a discussion about Q4 projections, "there's a matter I need to bring to the board's attention, a serious concern about Ms. Vaughn's recent activities." The room went quiet. Scarlett didn't react, just watched Victoria with those dark, unreadable eyes. "I've recently come into possession of documents that suggest Ms. Vaughn is planning an unauthorized hostile takeover of Meridian Technologies, using methods that violate both our corporate charter and several federal regulations." She pulled out a tablet, started distributing files to the other board members. "The evidence is quite damning. Falsified financial statements, bribery, insider trading. If this goes public, it would destroy this company's reputation and land several people in prison." The board members started reading, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern to something that looked like anger. One of them, an older man with silver hair, looked up at Scarlett. "Is this true?" "Mikari." Scarlett didn't answer immediately. She let the question hang in the air, let the tension build. Then she smiled. "No," she said simply. "It's not." Victoria's confident expression faltered slightly. "The evidence speaks for itself. The evidence is fabricated, and I can prove it." Scarlett opened her laptop, turned it to face the board. "Those documents were created on a dummy system I set up specifically to catch whoever's been trying to undermine me. Every file has embedded metadata showing exactly when and where it was created, and more importantly, who accessed it." She pulled up a screen showing access logs, timestamps, IP addresses. "Victoria accessed these files 3 days ago from her office. She's been trying to build a case against me using falsified evidence." The room erupted, board members shouting questions, Victoria trying to defend herself, chaos spreading like wildfire. And in the middle of it all, Scarlett sat perfectly calm, watching her plan unfold exactly as she designed it. That's when Liam noticed something wrong. The overhead lights flickered. Just once. So briefly he almost missed it. Then again, longer this time. He looked up at the ceiling fixtures, technician instincts kicking in. That wasn't a power issue. That was something else. He moved toward the electrical panel on the wall, pulled it open. Everything looked normal at first glance. Then he saw it. A small device wired into the circuit breaker, digital timer counting down. 12 seconds. 11. His brain made the connection in the space between heartbeats. The lights weren't flickering because of a power surge. They were flickering because something was drawing massive current from the system, building up to an overload that would, "Everyone out!" Liam shouted. "Now!" No one heard him over the arguing. He ran toward the table, grabbed the nearest board member's chair. "Move! Get out of the room!" What? Scarlett looked at him, saw something in his face, and stood immediately. "Evacuate now!" The authority in her voice cut through the chaos. Board members started moving, confused and angry, but moving. 5 seconds. Liam ran to Scarlett, grabbed her arm. "We need to go." They were 3 steps from the door when the device triggered. Every light in the room exploded simultaneously, glass raining down as the electrical system overloaded. Sparks erupted from the walls. The fire suppression system kicked in, alarms screaming, water cascading from the ceiling. And in the chaos and darkness and noise, Liam realized with cold certainty that this had never been about corporate politics or stolen files or board meetings. Someone had just tried to kill everyone in that room. The sprinklers were still going, water pouring down in sheets, turning the boardroom into something between a swimming pool and a disaster zone. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in harsh red. Liam could hear shouting, people coughing, the wail of fire alarms echoing through the building. He still had Scarlett's arm, was pulling her toward the exit when he saw Victoria on the floor near the table, clutching her shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. "Wait," Scarlett said, stopping. "We need to move." "She's hurt." Scarlett pulled free, moved toward Victoria. "She just tried to frame you. I don't leave people behind." Scarlett knelt beside Victoria, who was trying to stand, her face white with pain. "Let me see." Victoria jerked away. "Don't touch me." "You're bleeding." I said, "Don't." Victoria's legs buckled. Scarlett caught her before she hit the ground. Liam grabbed Victoria's other arm, and together they half-carried, half-dragged her into the hallway. The other board members were already evacuating, security personnel herding them toward the stairwells. The alarms were deafening, the emergency lights turning everyone into moving shadows. They made it to the 44th floor landing before Victoria's weight became too much. They set her down against the wall. Scarlett pulled Victoria's hand away from her shoulder, examined the wound. "Glass," she said. "Deep cut, but not arterial. You'll need stitches." "How do you know?" Victoria's voice was strained. "I know a lot of things." Scarlett pulled off her jacket, pressed it against the wound. "Hold this. Keep pressure on it." Emergency responders were already flooding up the stairs. Firefighters, EMTs, the controlled chaos of professionals doing their jobs. One of them spotted Victoria, moved toward them. "Ma'am, are you injured?" "Her shoulder," Scarlett said, stepping back. glass laceration. The EMT took over, started assessing Victoria's condition. Scarlett stood, turned to Liam. Her white shirt was soaked through, hair plastered to her face, but her eyes were sharp and focused. The device you saw, can you describe it? Small, black box wired into the breaker, digital timer. He paused, trying to remember details through the adrenaline fog. Professional work. Not something you'd get at a hardware store. Military grade? Maybe. Or high-end industrial. He looked at her. This wasn't about scaring you. This was an assassination attempt. I know. She started down the stairs. Come on. Where are we going? To find out who just tried to kill me. They descended through the organized chaos of an emergency evacuation, hundreds of employees filing down the stairwells in orderly lines. Security was directing traffic, making sure no one panicked. By the time they reached the lobby, fire trucks were already outside, their lights painting the glass walls in rotating colors. Scarlett pushed through the crowd toward the security office, Liam following in her wake. The head of security, a former NYPD detective named Harris, looked up when they entered. Ms. Vaughn, you should be outside with the others. I need your footage, boardroom level, the past 24 hours. We're in the middle of an emergency evacuation, and someone just tried to blow up your entire executive board. So unless you want to explain to the police why you didn't prioritize that, pull up the footage. Now, Harris stared at her for a moment, then turned to his monitors. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up security feeds. What am I looking for? Anyone accessing the electrical panel outside the boardroom. Maintenance personnel, cleaning crew, anyone. The footage rolled backward, timestamps racing. Liam watched the screen, seeing himself checking the AV equipment earlier that morning, board members arriving, the hallway empty except for the occasional passing executive. Then, at 2:47 a.m., a figure in a maintenance uniform appeared, hood up, face obscured. They moved to the electrical panel, spent exactly 4 minutes working on something, then disappeared down the service corridor. There, Scarlett said. Can you get a better angle? Harris switched cameras, tracked the figure through different feeds, but every angle was carefully blocked. Hood up, face turned away, gloved hands. Whoever this was knew exactly where the cameras were. Check badge access, Scarlett said. Harris pulled up the logs. No badge swipe at that time. They must have bypassed the system, or had credentials that don't show up in the official logs. Scarlett turned to Liam. That uniform, standard next-gen maintenance? UKC. He studied the figure on screen. No, wrong color. Ours are gray, that's navy blue. So, someone dressed up to look like maintenance. Someone who knew the building layout, camera positions, security protocols. She pulled out her phone. Someone inside. You think it's Victoria? Harris asked. Victoria is smart enough to hire someone, but she wouldn't get her hands dirty with the actual work. Scarlett was typing rapidly on her phone. And she was in that room. Whatever she's guilty of, attempted suicide isn't on the list. Then who? Scarlett didn't answer. She made a call, walked to the corner of the office. Liam couldn't hear what she was saying, but her voice was tight with controlled anger. She ended the call, came back. Harris, I need you to lock down all badge access to the executive floors. No one in or out except emergency personnel. And I want a list of everyone who had advanced knowledge of today's board meeting. That's going to be at least 30 people. Then make it 31 and add yourself to the list. She looked at Liam. You're with me. They left Harris pulling up records and walked back into the lobby. Outside, the plaza was packed with evacuated employees, everyone in various states of confusion and concern. News vans were already pulling up, reporters shouting questions that no one answered. Scarlett's phone rang. She answered, listened, her face hardening with each passing second. Where? A pause. I'm on my way. She ended the call, turned to Liam. They found something else. Basement level, near the server room. They took the emergency stairs down, descending into the building's infrastructure. The basement was a maze of pipes and cables, utility rooms and storage areas. Scarlett navigated it like she'd been there 100 times, which she probably had. A security team was waiting outside the server room. One of them, a woman with sergeant stripes on her sleeve, nodded to Scarlett. Ma'am, you need to see this. The server room door was standing open. Inside, tucked behind one of the cooling units, was a black duffel bag. Scarlett knelt beside it, pulled on a pair of latex gloves one of the security officers handed her, and unzipped the bag. Inside were 3 more devices identical to the one Liam had found upstairs. Each one wired, each one with a timer. They were hedging their bets, Scarlett said quietly. If the boardroom didn't work, they had backup plans. These weren't activated, the sergeant said. Timers are set, but not running, because they were supposed to be a failsafe. If I survived the first attack, these would have taken out the server infrastructure, crippled the company's operations. Scarlett stood, pulled off the gloves. This isn't just about killing me. This is about destroying NextGen. Liam felt his phone vibrate. He pulled it out, saw a text from a number he didn't recognize. Check your daughter's school, now. His blood turned to ice. I need to go. Scarlett looked at him. What is it? He showed her the text. Her face went pale. Go, she said. I'll send security with you. No time. He was already moving, running for the stairs. He took them 3 at a time, burst into the lobby, pushed through the crowd outside. His truck was in the employee lot 3 blocks away. He ran the whole distance, chest burning, mind racing through every horrible possibility. The truck started on the second try. He pulled into traffic, weaving through Manhattan gridlock with his hazard lights on and his hand on the horn. The drive to Brooklyn normally took 40 minutes. He made it in 22. PS 118 looked normal. Kids on the playground, teachers supervising recess, nothing out of place. Liam parked illegally, ran to the front entrance. The security guard stopped him. Sir, you can't. My daughter, Maya Carter. I need to see her right now. Is there an emergency? Just get her, please. The guard must have seen something in Liam's face, because he picked up his radio. Miss Patterson, we have a parent at the lobby asking for Maya Carter. Can you bring her down? 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Then Maya appeared, holding her teacher's hand, looking confused but unharmed. Daddy? He scooped her up, held her so tight she squirmed. Hey, sweetheart, you okay? Yeah, why are you here? Just wanted to see you. He set her down, looked at the teacher. Has anyone unusual been around today? Anyone asking about students? Anyone who doesn't belong? Ms. Patterson frowned. No? Why? Is something wrong? I don't know yet. He knelt in front of Maya. Listen to me very carefully. If anyone you don't know tries to talk to you, you find a teacher immediately. Understand? Okay, Daddy. She was starting to look scared. He forced a smile. It's just a precaution, sweetheart. Everything's fine. I'll pick you up right after school, okay? Promise? Promise. He kissed her forehead, watched Miss Patterson take her back to class, then walked outside and called Scarlett. She answered immediately. Is she safe? She's fine. But someone knew about her, knew where she goes to school. I'm sending a security detail to the school and your apartment. They'll be discreet, but they'll be there. A pause. Liam, whoever's behind this, they're escalating. You need to get Maya somewhere safe. Where? I don't have family. I have a property in Westchester. Private, secure, staff on site. Take her there tonight. I'll make the arrangements. I can't just... You can and you will. Because if something happens to your daughter because you're helping me, I'll never forgive myself, and neither will you. She was right. He hated it, but she was right. Okay, he said. What do I do? Go home. Pack a bag for both of you. A car will pick you up in 2 hours. Stay there until I tell you it's safe. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning. Stop playing defense and start hunting. The line went dead. Liam drove back to Brooklyn in a daze, his mind struggling to process how his life had gone from fixing broken lights to fleeing an assassination plot in less than a month. He packed quickly, efficiently, the way you pack when you don't know how long you'll be gone. Clothes for Maya, her favorite stuffed animal, the homework she'd been working on. For himself, just the basics. Mrs. Chen was confused when he told her they'd be away for a few days, but she didn't ask questions. That was one of the things he appreciated about her. She understood that sometimes people had reasons they couldn't share. He picked up Maya from school at 3 p.m., told her they were going on an adventure. Her eyes lit up. Like a vacation? Kind of like that, yeah. Will there be a pool? I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. And the car that picked them up was a black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he'd been in the military. He didn't introduce himself, just loaded their bags and drove them north. Westchester was a different world. Rolling hills, old money estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. The property Scarlett had sent them to was at the end of a private road. A sprawling house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. A woman met them at the door. Mid-50s, gray hair, kind eyes. "Mr. Carter, I'm Helen. Ms. Vaughn called ahead. Your rooms are ready." Maya's room had a canopy bed and a window overlooking a garden. She was delighted. Liam's room was adjacent, connected by a door he could keep open. "There's food in the kitchen whenever you're hungry," Helen said. "And the property is secure. You don't need to worry about anything." After she left, Liam stood at the window, watching the sun set over the manicured lawn, trying to figure out how he'd ended up here. His phone rang. "Scarlett, you're there?" "Yeah. This place it's too much. It's safe. That's all that matters." She sounded tired. "The police are involved now. They're treating the boardroom incident as attempted murder, multiple counts." "What about the other devices?" "Bomb squad removed them. They're being analyzed." A pause. Victoria's talking. She claims she didn't know about any of this, that she was set up just like everyone else. "Do you believe her?" I don't know what I believe anymore." The exhaustion in her voice was palpable. "But I know this. Whoever's behind this has resources, access, and patience. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer. What's your next move?" "I'm meeting with the board tomorrow. Emergency session. They want answers, and frankly, so do I." She was quiet for a moment. "Thank you, Liam, for seeing that device, for getting everyone out. You saved a lot of lives today." "I was just doing my job." "No, you were doing a lot more than that." Another pause. "Get some rest. I'll call you tomorrow." She hung up before he could respond. That night, after Maya was asleep, Liam sat in the unfamiliar room and tried to make sense of everything. He pulled out his phone, started going through the details in his head. The timeline. The players. The pieces that didn't fit. Victoria had motive to undermine Scarlett, but not to kill her. That was too messy, too risky. The person in the maintenance uniform was a professional, someone who knew the building intimately. And the threat to Maya, that was personal in a way that corporate sabotage wasn't. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "You're playing a dangerous game, Carter. Take your daughter and disappear while you still can." He stared at the message, pulse hammering. Then he forwarded it to Scarlett and turned off his phone. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, Helen made breakfast, pancakes that Maya devoured while chattering about the garden and the birds she'd seen outside her window. Liam tried to match her energy, tried to pretend everything was normal, but his mind was back in Manhattan, wondering what Scarlett was walking into. At 10 a.m., his phone rang. It was Derek Huang. "Carter, where the hell are you? I'm taking some personal days." "Personal days? Half the executive floor got evacuated yesterday because of a bomb, and you just disappear?" I needed to get my daughter somewhere safe." Huang was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, I get that. Listen, things are bad here. Real bad. The police are interviewing everyone who had access to the building. They're looking at maintenance staff, security, everyone. Have they found anything? If they have, they're not telling me. But Scarlett's in a board meeting right now, and from what I'm hearing, it's not going well. Half the board wants her to step down temporarily while the investigation continues." "She won't do that." "I know. That's what worries me." Huang sighed. "Watch your back, Carter. Whoever did this, they're still out there." After he hung up, Liam tried Scarlett's number. It went straight to voicemail. The hours crawled by. He played with Maya in the garden, read her stories, tried to keep his anxiety from showing. But by late afternoon, when he still hadn't heard anything, the knot in his stomach was pulling tighter. At 6 p.m., a text from Scarlett. "Board meeting went poorly. Need to talk. Can you get back to the city tonight?" He called Helen. Asked if she could watch Maya overnight. She agreed without hesitation. The same driver from yesterday picked him up at 7 p.m. The drive back into Manhattan felt longer than it should have. every mile increasing the sense that he was heading back into something he shouldn't have left. The driver dropped him at a building in Tribeca, gave him an apartment number. Liam took the elevator to the 14th floor, knocked on the door marked 14C. Scarlett answered. She looked worse than he'd ever seen her. No makeup, hair loose around her shoulders, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual suit. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked like a regular person instead of an untouchable CEO. Come in. The apartment was smaller than he'd expected, furnished in a minimalist style that felt deliberately impersonal. Scarlett gestured to the couch. Want a drink? Sure. She poured 2 whiskeys, handed him one, sat in the chair across from him. The board voted to suspend me pending the investigation. Liam felt his stomach drop. They can't do that. They just did. Effective immediately. I'm on administrative leave. Victoria's been appointed interim CEO. She took a long drink. Ironic, isn't it? She tried to destroy me with fake evidence, and I end up suspended anyway. Can you fight it? I could, but it would take months. And in the meantime, whoever's really behind this gets exactly what they want. Me out of the way while they tear the company apart. She set down her glass. So I'm not going to fight it through official channels. What does that mean? It means I'm going to find out who did this myself. And when I do, I'm going to make sure they pay for it. She looked at him, and there was something fierce in her eyes. I need your help. Scarlett, I'm a maintenance guy. I don't know anything about corporate investigations or, you know the building, you know the systems, the access points, the blind spots. She leaned forward. The police are looking at this as a simple assassination attempt. But I think it's bigger than that. Someone's been systematically undermining me for months. The threats, the sabotage, the board manipulation. It's all connected. You think Victoria's involved? I think Victoria's a symptom, not the disease. Someone's been feeding her information, positioning her to take over when I'm gone. But she's not smart enough to orchestrate all this alone. Liam thought about the conversation he'd overheard that first morning, what felt like a lifetime ago. She's getting suspicious. What do you need me to do? I need you to go back to Next Gen. Act like everything's normal, but while you're there, I need you to look for something. What? Proof, financial records, communications, anything that shows who's been working against me. She pulled out a flash drive. This has software that'll let you access restricted servers. If you can plug it into any terminal on the executive floor, it'll create a backdoor I can use remotely. That's illegal. So is attempted murder. She held out the flash drive. I'm not going to force you, but I need someone I can trust. And that list is very, very short right now. Liam took the drive. If I get caught, you won't. You're too good at being invisible. She stood, walked to the window. I know I'm asking a lot. You have every right to walk away. He should have taken Maya and disappeared, found a new job in a new city where billionaire CEOs and corporate warfare didn't exist. But he thought about the way Scarlett had knelt beside Victoria, even after Victoria had tried to destroy her. The way she'd sent him to protect Maya without hesitation. The way she'd looked standing in that flooded boardroom, refusing to back down even when the ceiling was literally falling. When do you need it done? Relief flickered across her face. Tomorrow night, late, when the floor's empty. What about security? They'll see me on the cameras. Not if you use the service corridors. I'll send you the routes. She turned back to him. And Liam, be careful. Whoever's behind this, they've already proven they're willing to kill. Don't give them a reason to add you to the list. He left an hour later with the flash drive in his pocket and a floor plan on his phone showing routes through the building that avoided most of the security cameras. The driver took him back to Westchester, where Maya was already asleep. Helen had left a note saying she'd made dinner if he was hungry. He wasn't, but he ate anyway, forcing down food while his mind went through tomorrow's plans step by step. At midnight, he checked on Maya one more time, then lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was brave or just stupid. Probably both. The next day crawled by. He played with Maya, helped Helen in the garden, tried to act like a father on vacation instead of a man about to commit corporate espionage. At 4 p.m., the driver came to pick him up. You're leaving again? Maya's face fell. Just for tonight, sweetheart. I'll be back tomorrow morning, I promise. You keep leaving. I know. I'm sorry. He hugged her. But this is the last time for a while. After tonight, things are going to be different. He hoped that was true. The drive into Manhattan felt like riding toward an execution. The city lights looked harsh, unfriendly. Liam had the driver drop him 2 blocks from NextGen, walked the rest of the way. He badged in through the employee entrance at 8 p.m. The lobby was mostly empty, just a skeleton security crew and a few late-working employees. He took the service elevator to the basement, started making his way through the corridors Scarlett had mapped out. The executive floor at night was eerie. Emergency lighting cast long shadows. His footsteps echoed on the marble. Every sound made him jump. He reached the IT server room without incident, used his badge to get inside. The servers hummed quietly, LEDs blinking in the darkness. He found a terminal in the back, powered it on, plugged in the flash drive. A progress bar appeared. 2% complete, 5%, 12%. This was taking too long. He heard voices in the hallway, footsteps approaching. The progress bar hit 67%, 73%. The footsteps were getting closer. 85%, 91%. The door handle turned. 97%, 99%. Complete. Liam yanked the flash drive, shoved it in his pocket, killed the monitor. He dropped behind a server rack just as the door opened. 2 people walked in. He couldn't see them, but he could hear them clearly. Sure the back door Victoria installed is still active? A man's voice. Familiar, but Liam couldn't place it. It should be. She said she'd keep it running even after Scarlett got suspended. A woman's voice, also familiar. Good. Once we have control of the financial systems, we can start the transfer. Scarlett will be too busy fighting criminal charges to notice until it's too late. What about the maintenance guy, the one who found the device? Liam's blood went cold. Carter? He's irrelevant. Just some nobody who got lucky. The man laughed. Even if he figured something out, who's going to believe him? He's nothing. The voices faded as they moved deeper into the server room. Liam waited until he was certain they were gone, then slipped out and ran. He made it back to the service corridor, down to the basement, out the employee exit. He didn't stop running until he was 3 blocks away, chest heaving, hands shaking. He pulled out his phone, called Scarlett. Did you get it? Yeah, but there's more. He told her about the conversation, everything he'd heard. She was quiet for a long moment. Do you know who they were? I couldn't see them, but the voices were familiar. People who work on that floor, but that narrows it down to about 30 people. She cursed quietly. But at least now we know Victoria's still involved. And whoever she's working with, they're planning to embezzle funds and frame me for it. What do? You get back to Maya and stay there. I'll handle the rest. Scarlett, I mean it, Liam. You've done enough. More than enough. Let me finish this. She hung up before he could argue. The driver was waiting where he'd left him. Liam climbed into the SUV, slumped against the seat, feeling the adrenaline drain away and leave exhaustion in its wake. His phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Last chance, walk away. He deleted it and closed his eyes. By the time they reached Westchester, it was past midnight. The house was dark except for a single lamp Helen had left on in the entryway. Liam checked on Maya, still sleeping peacefully, then collapsed into bed. He woke to his phone ringing. 6 a.m., Scarlett. Turn on the news. He fumbled for the remote, switched on the TV in his room. Every news channel was showing the same story. Victoria Hayes had been arrested at her home at 4 a.m. on charges of corporate espionage, fraud, and attempted murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Financial records showing illegal transfers, communications with known criminals, security footage that hadn't existed yesterday. How did you... The back door you installed gave me access to everything, including Victoria's private files. Turns out she kept very detailed records of her activities. Scarlett's voice was calm, satisfied. She'll be going away for a very long time. But what about the other person, the one in the server room? I'm working on that. The voice analysis from your recording is being processed now. We'll have an ID soon. You recorded our call? I record everything, Carter. It's how I stay alive. A pause. There's a board meeting in 2 hours, emergency session. They're going to reinstate me and formally charge Victoria. That's good, right? It's a start. She didn't sound as happy as she should have. But whoever tried to kill me in that boardroom is still out there. And they're not going to stop just because Victoria got arrested. What are you saying? I'm saying this isn't over, not by a long shot. The board meeting lasted 3 hours. Liam watched it from the Westchester house, CNN streaming on his laptop, while Maya built a fort out of couch cushions in the next room. The anchors speculated endlessly about Victoria Hayes, about NextGen's future, about whether Scarlett Vaughn could survive this scandal. When Scarlett finally emerged from the building, microphone shoved in her face, she looked composed, unshakable. She made a brief statement about Victoria's arrest, about the board's confidence in her leadership, about moving forward stronger than before. She didn't mention the person who was still out there, the one who'd planted those bombs, the one whose voice Liam had heard in the server room. His phone rang an hour later. "I'm back," Scarlett said without preamble. "Board reinstated me unanimously. Victoria's facing 30 years minimum. Congratulations." "Don't. This doesn't feel like winning." Her voice was flat, exhausted. The voice analysis came back. 3 possible matches based on vocal patterns and speech characteristics. Who? James Park, the CFO, Monica Reyes from Operations, and Derek Huang. Liam felt his stomach drop. Huang? That doesn't make sense. He's been warning me about security threats since this started. Or he's been keeping tabs on you, making sure you didn't figure anything out. She paused. All 3 of them had access to the boardroom. All 3 knew about the meeting schedule. And all 3 have motive. What motive does Huang have? He's just a facilities manager. Right, Apple? His brother was fired from NextGen 2 years ago for embezzlement. Huang blamed me, said I destroyed his family. He's been here long enough to know every system, every weakness. Another pause. But Park has gambling debts in the millions. And Reyes has been passed over for promotion 3 times. Any one of them could be desperate enough. So what do we do? I'm bringing them in for questioning tomorrow, separately. The police want to handle it, but I convinced them to let me talk to each of them first. She exhaled slowly. I need you there. Why? Because you heard the voice. You might recognize speech patterns, mannerisms, things that wouldn't show up in a computer analysis. Scarlett, I'm not a detective. No. But you're observant and you're honest, and right now those are the 2 qualities I trust most. Her voice softened slightly. Please. He looked through the doorway at Maya, who was putting stuffed animals inside her cushion fort, narrating an elaborate story about princesses and dragons. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I'll send a car. After she hung up, Liam sat with his laptop, staring at the news coverage. Victoria Hayes in handcuffs, being led into a police station. Board members declining to comment. Financial analysts predicting NextGen stock would take a hit. None of it felt real. That evening, he helped Helen make dinner while Maya set the table, chattering about the fort she'd built and asking when they could go home. He didn't have an answer for her. After Maya was asleep, he sat in the garden with a beer he didn't really want, trying to remember exactly what he'd heard in that server room. The man's voice had been familiar, but not distinctive. Professional, controlled. It could have been any of the 3 Scarlett had named. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. Stop now while you still can. He forwarded it to Scarlett, got an immediate response. Ignore it. They're trying to scare you. It's working, he typed back. I know. But you're stronger than you think. He wanted to believe her. The car arrived at 7 the next morning. Maya clung to him at the door. Do you have to go? I do, sweetheart, but I'll be back tonight, I promise. You keep promising. I know, and I keep coming back, don't I? She nodded reluctantly. He kissed her forehead, told Helen he'd call later and climbed into the SUV. The drive into Manhattan felt different this time. Less like heading into danger, more like heading toward an ending. One way or another, this was almost over. NextGen looked the same as always, glass and steel rising into a gray November sky. But when Liam badged in, the lobby felt different, quieter, tense. People moved through it with their heads down, avoiding eye contact. He took the elevator to 45. Scarlett was waiting in her office, looking like she hadn't slept. 2 cups of coffee sat on her desk. Thanks for coming. Who's first? Park. He'll be here in 10 minutes. She handed him one of the coffees. You'll be in the adjacent office, watching through the glass. There's a speaker so you can hear everything. If you recognize the voice, text me. What if I don't? Then we move on to the next one. The adjacent office was small, barely more than a closet, with a desk and a window that looked into Scarlett's office. Liam could see her clearly through the one-way glass, but she couldn't see him. James Park arrived precisely on time. Late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit. He looked annoyed. Scarlett, I have back-to-back meetings this morning. What's this about? Sit down, James. He sat, radiating impatience. Scarlett remained standing, arms crossed. Where were you 3 nights ago? Between 10 p.m. and midnight? Is this an interrogation? It's a question. Answer it. Park's jaw tightened. I was at home, with my wife. Can she verify that? Of course she can. What's this about? Someone accessed our server room that night, had a very interesting conversation about embezzling company funds and framing me for it. Scarlett leaned against her desk. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking a question. Then here's my answer. No, I don't know anything about it, and I resent the implication. He stood. If you want to question me further, you can do it through my lawyer. He stormed out. Liam texted Scarlett, not him, voice is wrong, too sharp. She read the message, nodded slightly toward the window. Monica Reyes came next. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of posture that suggested she was always ready for a fight. This is highly irregular, she said, sitting without being asked. I don't appreciate being summoned like some kind of suspect. Then you shouldn't have acted like one. Scarlett pulled up something on her laptop, turned it to face Reyes. These are server access logs from 3 nights ago. Your credentials were used to access restricted files. Reyes barely glanced at the screen. My credentials are shared with my entire team. Any one of them could have used them. Convenient. It's protocol. You approved it yourself 6 months ago. Reyes leaned back, crossed her legs. Is there an actual accusation here, or are you just fishing? Where were you 3 nights ago? Working late, alone in my office, preparing for the quarterly review that you canceled because of this circus with Victoria. She stood. If that's all, I have actual work to do. She left before Scarlett could respond. Liam texted, maybe, can't be sure. Voice is similar but not exact. Scarlett checked her phone, sent back. Last one coming. Derek Huang looked worse than Liam had ever seen him. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, eyes red from lack of sleep. He sat down heavily in the chair across from Scarlett. I know what you're going to ask. Do you? You think I'm involved in this, the bombs, the threats, all of it. He rubbed his face. I'm not, but I understand why you'd suspect me. Your brother hated you. I know, and yeah, I was angry when you fired him. He was family. Huang looked up at her. But he was also guilty. He stole from this company, and you were right to fire him. I didn't agree with it at the time, but I do now. So where were you 3 nights ago? At a bar in Queens, drinking myself into a stupor because my marriage is falling apart and my job is killing me, and I don't know how to fix either of those things. He pulled out his phone, showed her something. Here's my credit card statement. 4 bars, 6 hours, enough alcohol to pickle a small animal. Scarlett looked at the statement. This doesn't prove you weren't in the server room. No, but it proves I was too drunk to stand, much less execute an elaborate corporate conspiracy. He pocketed the phone. Scarlett, I've worked for you for 8 years. I'm not saying I've always agreed with your decisions, but I've never once undermined you, and I'm not starting now. They sat in silence for a moment. If it wasn't you, Scarlett said quietly, then who? I don't know, but whoever it is, they're smart, and they're patient, and they're still here. After Huang left, Scarlett came into the adjacent office. Well? Liam shook his head. I can't be sure. The voice in the server room was too distorted, too far away. It could have been any of them, or none of them. She slumped against the wall. So we're back to square one. What about the woman's voice? You didn't bring her in. Because I don't know who she is. The analysis couldn't narrow it down. Too many female employees with similar vocal patterns. She closed her eyes. I was so sure it was one of them. Maybe it's someone we haven't considered. Someone lower on the organizational chart who's been hiding in plain sight. Or someone who doesn't work here at all. She opened her eyes, looked at him. Victoria might have been working with outside contractors, professional criminals who wouldn't show up in our employee database. Before Liam could respond, her phone rang. She answered, listened, her face going pale. When? A pause. I'm on my way. She ended the call, looked at Liam. There's been another incident. Conference center downtown. I'm scheduled to give a keynote speech there this afternoon. What kind of incident? Security found a suspicious package near the stage. Bomb squad is there now. They took Scarlett's car, a black Mercedes that had been repaired after the Keene incident. She drove herself weaving through traffic with controlled aggression. You should cancel the speech, Liam said. I cancel, and they win. They get to control my schedule, my life, my company through fear. She took a corner too fast. I'm not giving them that. Even if it gets you killed? Better dead than controlled. The conference center was surrounded by police vehicles and emergency responders. Scarlett badged past the perimeter, Liam following. A police captain met them at the entrance. Ms. Vaughn, we need you to stay back. What did you find? Package addressed to you, left at the speaker's podium. He gestured toward the building. Bomb squad's examining it now. They waited. 15 minutes that felt like 15 hours. Finally, a member of the bomb squad emerged, carrying something in a clear evidence bag. Not a bomb, he said. Just a box with a note inside. What does it say? Scarlett asked. The bomb tech handed her the evidence bag. Through the plastic, Liam could see a single sheet of paper with typed text. This is your last warning. Resign or die. Scarlett read it, handed it back without reaction. Thank you, officer. I'll be giving my speech as scheduled. Ma'am, that's not advisable. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not going to let threats dictate my actions. She turned to Liam. You should go. There's no reason for you to be here. If you're staying, I'm staying. Liam, you said you needed someone you could trust, so trust me enough to let me watch your back. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. All right, but stay out of sight. And if anything feels wrong, you get out immediately. The conference center slowly filled with attendees, business leaders, tech executives, journalists. The event organizers had decided to proceed despite the threat, probably because Scarlett had made it clear she was speaking regardless. Liam positioned himself backstage where he could see both the podium and the audience. Security was everywhere, more visible than usual. Everyone who entered was screened, bags checked, metal detectors at every entrance. At 2 p.m., the moderator introduced Scarlett. She walked onto the stage to polite applause, looking completely composed, like she hadn't just received a death threat an hour earlier. She began speaking about innovation, about the future of technology, about NextGen's vision. Her voice was steady, confident. The audience listened, engaged. Liam scanned the crowd, looking for anything unusual, a face that didn't fit, movement that seemed wrong. But everyone looked normal, professional, bored in some cases. 20 minutes into the speech, he noticed it. A man in the third row, wearing a gray suit, wasn't watching Scarlett. He was watching his phone, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. That alone wasn't suspicious. Half the audience was on their phones. But something about his posture, the intensity of his focus, set off alarms in Liam's head. He moved closer, trying to see the phone screen, couldn't make it out from this angle. Then the man stood, started moving toward the aisle. Not running, just walking, purposeful and calm. Heading for the exit. Liam's instincts screamed at him. He pulled out his phone, texted Scarlett. Man in gray suit, third row. Moving toward east exit. Something's wrong. On stage, Scarlett paused mid-sentence, glanced at her watch where the text would have appeared, then continued speaking without missing a beat. Liam followed the man into the lobby. The guy was moving faster now, checking his phone every few seconds. Excuse me, Liam called out. The man turned. Mid-30s, nondescript features, the kind of face you'd forget immediately. Yes? I think you dropped something. Liam walked closer, trying to see the phone screen. The man's expression didn't change, but his hand moved to his pocket. When it came out, he was holding a knife. Back off. War, sorry, I'm a bar. Liam raised his hands. Easy. I don't want any trouble. Then you shouldn't have followed me. The man glanced back toward the conference hall. She's got about 90 seconds before the real bomb goes off. The one we planted in the sound system 2 days ago while everyone was looking at the fake package. Liam's blood turned to ice. You're lying. Am I? The man smiled. Guess we'll find out. He turned and ran. Liam had a choice. Follow the man or warn Scarlett. No choice at all, really. He sprinted back into the conference hall, ran straight down the center aisle toward the stage. Security moved to intercept him, but he was faster. Bomb! He shouted. Everyone out, now! The audience erupted into chaos, people screaming, running for exits, security trying to maintain order and failing. Liam reached the stage, grabbed Scarlett's arm. We need to go, now. She didn't argue. They ran backstage toward the emergency exit. Behind them, Liam could hear the stampede of people evacuating. They were halfway to the exit when the explosion hit. Not massive, not the kind of Hollywood fireball that levels buildings, but enough to blow out the sound system in a shower of sparks and shrapnel, enough to send the front rows diving for cover, enough to cause exactly the kind of panic that could kill people in a crush. Liam and Scarlett burst through the emergency exit into an alley. They kept running until they were a block away, finally stopping in the doorway of a closed shop. Scarlett was breathing hard, her hair disheveled, mascara smudged. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked genuinely shaken. You okay? Liam asked. She nodded, still catching her breath. How did you know? Guy in the audience. He was signaling someone. I followed him. He pulled a knife, told me about the bomb. Yeah, Where's he now? Gone. I chose warning you over chasing him. She looked at him, and something in her eyes made his chest tighten. Thank you. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. They could hear shouting from the conference center, emergency responders mobilizing. We need to call the police, Liam said. Not yet. Scarlett pulled out her phone, started typing rapidly. I got a glimpse of his face when you were talking to him. I'm running facial recognition against our employee database. You think he works for NextGen? I think everyone involved in this works for NextGen. The building access, the inside knowledge, the timing. This is someone close. Her phone chimed. Got him. Marcus Tennant, IT security. Been with the company for 3 years. It's security. Liam felt pieces clicking into place. That means he'd have access to everything. Server rooms, security systems, badge protocols, and he'd know exactly how to bypass all of it. Scarlett was already dialing. This is Vaughn. I need a location trace on employee Marcus Tennant, IT security. Now. She listened, her expression hardening. When? Another pause. Forward everything to my phone. She ended the call. He called in sick this morning. Hasn't been to the office in 3 days. So he's running. Or hiding. She looked at Liam. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. What? Are you willing to see this through to the end? Because it's about to get dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with fixing lights or carrying flash drives. Liam thought about Maya, safe in Westchester, about the life he'd built for her, fragile and hard-won, about walking away from all of this and never looking back. Then he thought about the man with the knife, the bombs, the calculated cruelty of people who'd kill hundreds just to get to one person. I'm in, he said. What do we do? Scarlett's phone chimed. She checked it, and a cold smile crossed her face. Tennant just used his credit card at a gas station in Jersey. He's running, but he's not very good at it. She started walking toward the street. My car's 2 blocks from here. We're going after him. Shouldn't we let the police? The police will take hours to mobilize. By then, he'll be gone. She looked back at him. You coming or not? He followed. They retrieved Scarlett's car from the parking garage near the conference center, now swarming with police and emergency vehicles. No one stopped them. In the chaos, they were just two more people evacuating the area. Scarlett drove, following the GPS coordinates her security team was sending to her phone. The gas station was 40 minutes west, just over the state line into New Jersey. "What's the plan when we find him?" Liam asked. "We make him tell us who he's working with, who put him up to this. And if he doesn't want to talk, then we make him want to." The certainty in her voice should have worried him. Instead, it was almost comforting. After weeks of playing defense, they were finally on the offensive. The gas station was small, run down, the kind of place that probably did more business selling lottery tickets than actual gas. Scarlett pulled into the parking lot, killed the engine. "There." She pointed to a gray sedan at the far pump. "That's his car." Tennant was inside the convenience store, visible through the grimy windows. He was alone, buying something from the clerk. "We wait until he comes out," Scarlett said. "Then we confront him." "What if he runs?" "Then you stop him. You're faster than he is." "How do you know that?" "Because I've seen you run. And I've seen his employee fitness evaluation. Trust me." They waited. 3 minutes that felt like 30. Then Tennant emerged, carrying a paper bag and a coffee. He walked toward his car, completely unaware. Scarlett and Liam got out of the Mercedes, moving to intercept him. Tennant saw them when he was 5 feet from his car. His face went white. "Mr. Tennant," Scarlett said, her voice deadly calm, "we need to talk." He dropped the bag and ran. Liam was moving before he consciously decided to, muscle memory from years of chasing Maya around playgrounds taking over. Tennant was fast, but Liam was faster and more motivated. He caught him at the edge of the parking lot, tackled him into the weeds beside the road. They went down hard, Tennant struggling, Liam pinning him. "Stop fighting," Liam said through gritted teeth. "You're done." Tennant went limp. Liam hauled him to his feet, marched him back toward Scarlett. She was standing by Tennant's car, arms crossed, looking like a CEO who'd just won a hostile takeover. "Get in," she said, gesturing to her Mercedes. "We're going somewhere private to have a conversation." Tennant's eyes darted around, looking for escape routes. Liam tightened his grip on the man's arm. "Don't even think about it." "Bam!" They drove for 20 minutes, Scarlett navigating back roads until they reached an industrial park that looked mostly abandoned. She pulled behind a warehouse, out of sight from the main road. "Out," she said. They got out. Scarlett stood in front of Tennant, and Liam saw something in her expression he'd never seen before. Pure, cold fury. "Who hired you?" she asked. "I want a lawyer." "You'll get one. Eventually. Right now you're going to answer my questions." She stepped closer. "Who?" "Hired. You." "I'm not saying anything without—" Scarlett pulled out her phone, held up a photo. "This is your daughter, isn't it? Emma, 8 years old, goes to Jefferson Elementary." Tennant's face went white. "Don't you dare!" "I'm not threatening her. I would never hurt a child." Scarlett's voice was ice. "But the people you're working for, they have no such scruples. You think they're going to protect you once you're arrested? You think they're going to take care of your family?" Tennant's jaw worked. Liam could see him breaking, resolve crumbling. "Liam, they said it was just corporate espionage," he said finally. "Just stealing trade secrets. They didn't tell me about the bombs until it was too late. By then they had enough on me to put me away for 20 years. "Who are they?" "I don't know names, just a woman. She contacted me 6 months ago. Offered me money to install back doors in the security system." "What did she look like?" "Blonde, 40s, expensive clothes." He paused. "She had a scar, right here." He touched his left eyebrow. Scarlett and Liam exchanged glances. Monica Reyes had a scar in exactly that spot. "What else?" Scarlett demanded. "That's all I know, I swear. She paid in cash, we only met twice. Everything else was through encrypted messages that self-deleted." "Where were you supposed to meet her next?" "I wasn't. After today, I was supposed to disappear. She gave me 50,000 and a new identity. He looked at Scarlett with something like desperation. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just needed the money. My daughter has medical bills and insurance wouldn't cover. Save it, Scarlett cut him off. You don't get to play the victim here. She pulled out her phone, dialed. This is Scarlett Vaughn. I have Marcus Tennant in custody. We're at the Riverside Industrial Park, Building 12. Send police. She ended the call, looked at Tennant. You're going to tell them everything you just told us. And if you're lucky, they'll give you a deal in exchange for testimony against Reyes. DA. They waited with Tennant until the police arrived. 2 squad cars and an unmarked sedan carrying a detective Scarlett apparently knew. She gave a brief statement, leaving out the part where they'd chased Tennant down and extracted a confession through intimidation. The detective looked skeptical, but didn't push. We'll need both of you to come to the station for formal statements. Tomorrow, Scarlett said. Right now, I have someone else to deal with. She didn't wait for permission, just walked back to her car, Liam following. We're going after Rhea? He asked as they pulled onto the highway. We're going to end this, tonight. The drive back to Manhattan was tense and silent. Scarlett made phone calls in rapid succession. To her head of security, to her lawyer, to someone Liam didn't recognize. Arranging pieces on a chessboard only she could see. When they pulled into Next Gen's parking garage, it was past 8 p.m. The building was mostly dark, just a few lit windows on the upper floors. Monica's still here, Scarlett said, checking her phone. Her car's in the garage and her office lights are on. What's the plan? We confront her, get her to confess, record everything. She looked at him. This time we do it by the book. No chasing, no threats, just the truth. They rode the elevator to 45. The floor was empty and quiet, emergency lighting casting long shadows. Monica Reyes' office was at the far end, light visible under the door. Scarlett knocked once, then opened the door without waiting for a response. Reyes looked up from her laptop, surprise flickering across her face before she smoothed it away. Scarlett, I heard about the conference center. Are you all right? We arrested Marcus Tennant an hour ago. He told us everything. What boss? Oh, my sons. Reyes' expression didn't change, but her hand moved almost imperceptibly toward her desk drawer. I don't know what you're talking about. He described you, down to the scar above your eye. Said you hired him to sabotage security systems, plant bombs, orchestrate my assassination. That's absurd. He's lying to save himself. Is this... Maybe. Scarlett walked closer. Or maybe you've been planning this for months, ever since I passed you over for the VP promotion. How much did it sting, Monica? Knowing you'd given this company 15 years and I still didn't think you were good enough? Reyes stood slowly. You have no proof. I have Tennant's testimony. I have the financial record showing irregular payments to offshore accounts in your name. I have security footage of you meeting with him in that coffee shop on 43rd Street. Scarlett pulled out her phone. And I have this conversation, being recorded right now, which will show a jury exactly who you are. For a long moment, Reyes just stared at her. Then she smiled. You think you've won. You think arresting me ends this. She shook her head. I'm just the one who got caught, Scarlett. There are others. People you trust, people you've never suspected, and they're not going to stop until you're dead, and Next Gen is ashes. Who? Scarlett demanded. Figure it out yourself. Reyes reached for her desk drawer again. Liam moved without thinking, crossing the distance between them in 3 strides, and grabbing her wrist before she could pull out whatever was in that drawer. A gun. Small, black, deadly. He yanked it away, held it carefully while his heart hammered against his ribs. Scarlett called security. They arrived within minutes, took Reyes into custody. She didn't struggle, didn't protest, just kept smiling that cold smile as they led her away. After they left, Scarlett sank into Reyes' chair, suddenly looking exhausted. It's not over, she said quietly. She's right. There are others. Liam set the gun on the desk, sat across from her. Then we find them. Same way we found her. I'm tired, Liam. I'm tired of fighting, tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of not knowing who I can trust. You can trust me. She looked up at him, and he saw something vulnerable in her eyes. Something real. "I know," she said. "That's the only reason I'm still standing." They sat in Monica Rea's empty office for another 20 minutes, neither of them speaking, both processing what had just happened. Liam kept thinking about the gun in the drawer, how close they'd come to something much worse than arrest. Scarlett stared at her phone, scrolling through messages she wasn't really reading. Finally, she stood. "Come on, I need to get out of this building." They drove to a diner in Brooklyn, the kind of place that still had red vinyl booths and served breakfast 24 hours a day. It was nearly midnight, and the place was mostly empty except for a few late-shift workers and insomniacs nursing coffee. Scarlett ordered eggs and toast. Liam got the same, even though he wasn't hungry. They sat across from each other in a corner booth. And for the first time since this whole thing started, they weren't CEO and maintenance worker, just two exhausted people trying to make sense of chaos. "I should check on Maya," Liam said, pulling out his phone. "How is she handling all this?" "Eats. She doesn't know most of it, just thinks we're on an extended vacation." He texted Helen, got a response within seconds. "She's fine, asleep. Don't worry." He set the phone down. "Your turn. How are you handling all this?" Scarlett looked at him like he'd asked something unexpected. "I'm still alive. That's about all I can manage right now." "That's not an answer. Eat. It's the only one I have." She picked at her toast without eating it. "You know what the worst part is? Not the bombs or the threats or even the betrayal. It's realizing how many people hate me enough to want me dead. Victoria, Monica, Tennant. How many others are out there, waiting for their chance? You can't think like that. Why not? It's true." She finally met his eyes. "I've spent my entire adult life building this company, sacrificing everything, relationships, health, any semblance of a normal life, for NextGen. And for what? So people can try to kill me over quarterly earnings and board positions?" Liam didn't have an answer for that. The food arrived, and they ate in silence for a while. "Can I ask you something?" Scarlett said eventually. "Sure, Us. Why did you help me? You could have walked away a dozen times. Should have walked away. But you stayed. Why?" He thought about it, trying to find words for something he wasn't sure he understood himself. "At first, honestly, it was the money. I needed the job, needed to take care of Maya. But then I got to know you, saw how you handled everything thrown at you without backing down, and I realized you reminded me of someone." "Who?" "Me. Or who I used to be, anyway, before life beat me down enough that I stopped fighting back." He pushed his plate away. "You don't let the world make you small. I admire that." Scarlett was quiet for a long moment. "You're wrong, you know, about yourself." "About what?" "You never stopped fighting. You just chose a different battle, raising your daughter alone, keeping her safe and happy on a maintenance worker's salary. That takes more strength than anything I do." It was Liam's turn to be quiet. They finished eating, and Scarlett paid the check over Liam's protests. Outside, the November air was cold and sharp. A few snowflakes were starting to fall, the first of the season. "I should get back to Westchester," Liam said. "Check on Maya." "I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "I want to." The drive north was quiet. Scarlett's phone kept buzzing with messages, probably her lawyer, her security team, the police. She ignored all of them. When they finally pulled up to the Westchester house, it was past 1 a.m. "Thank you," Liam said, "for everything. The job, the protection, trusting me when you had no reason to. Thank you for saving my life. Multiple times." She smiled slightly. "We're even." He got out of the car, then turned back. "Scarlett, be careful. Monica said there were others. Don't assume it's over just because she's arrested." "I won't." He watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the snowy night before heading inside. The next morning, Liam woke to Maya jumping on his bed. "Daddy, it snowed. Can we build a snowman?" He looked out the window. 2 inches covered the ground, still falling. "Yeah, sweetheart. Let's build a snowman." They spent the morning outside, Maya directing the construction with the authority of a general commanding troops. Helen brought them hot chocolate. For a few hours, Liam could almost pretend everything was normal. His phone rang around noon. Scarlett. Turn on the news, resurfaces. He went inside, switched on the TV. Every channel was covering the same story. Next Gen Technologies CFO James Park had been arrested that morning on charges of conspiracy, embezzlement, and attempted murder. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Financial records showing payments to both Victoria Hayes and Monica Reyes, communications detailing the entire assassination plot, even footage of him meeting with Tennant. Park? Liam said into the phone. I thought he was the one behind everything. Victoria and Monica were just pawns. Scarlett's voice was tight with controlled anger. He'd been skimming from the company for years, using discretionary funds to cover his gambling debts. When I started implementing new financial oversight protocols, he knew I'd eventually find the discrepancies, so he decided to eliminate me before I could expose him. How did you figure it out? I didn't. He turned himself in this morning, walked into a police station with his lawyer and confessed to everything. She paused. His daughter was in a car accident last night. She's in critical condition. I think it gave him perspective on what actually matters. Liam watched the news coverage, seeing Park in handcuffs, looking 20 years older than he had just days ago. Is it really over? The police seem to think so. They've arrested everyone involved, frozen all the relevant accounts, secured the evidence. Park's cooperating fully. She exhaled slowly. Yeah, I think it's finally over. They talked for a few more minutes, then Scarlett had to go. More meetings, more calls. The endless machinery of crisis management grinding forward. Liam spent the afternoon with Maya, building that snowman, having a snowball fight, making snow angels. Normal father-daughter things that felt impossibly precious after everything that had happened. That evening, after Maya was asleep, he sat with Helen in the kitchen over coffee. You can go home now, she said gently. If you want to. I know. I'm just trying to figure out what home looks like anymore. She patted his hand. It looks like wherever your daughter is. Everything else is just details. The next few days passed in a strange kind of limbo. Liam stayed in Westchester with Maya, watching the news coverage of Next Gen's crisis from a distance. Park, Victoria, and Monica were all in custody, facing decades in prison. Tennant had taken a plea deal in exchange for his testimony. The company's stock had taken a hit, but Scarlett had given a press conference that seemed to stabilize things. She called him every evening, brief check-ins that felt like lifelines for both of them, talking about nothing, the weather, what Maya had done that day, how the investigation was progressing, small talk that felt important somehow. On the fourth day, she called with different news. The board wants to give you a commendation, public recognition for preventing the attack at the conference center. I don't want recognition. I just want to go back to my life. Well, what if I told you that life could be different? She paused. I'm creating a new position, Director of Facilities and Security. It would mean overseeing all building operations, working directly with my office, helping prevent anything like this from happening again. The salary would be $200,000 a year. Liam felt his breath catch. Scarlett, before you say no, think about it. You proved you're capable of so much more than fixing lights. You're smart, observant, and you don't crack under pressure. Those are rare qualities. I'm not qualified for a position like that. You're more qualified than half the people who'll apply with fancy degrees and zero real-world experience. Her voice softened. I'm not offering this out of gratitude or guilt. I'm offering it because you're good at it, and because I trust you. That's worth more than any resume. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. After she hung up, Liam sat staring at his phone, trying to process what she'd just offered. $200,000. Financial security for Maya's entire childhood. College fund, better apartment, everything he'd been struggling to provide. But it also meant staying in Scarlett's orbit, working in that world of corporate politics and high stakes where people planted bombs over quarterly earnings. He thought about it for 3 days. On the third day, Maya asked him when they were going home. Soon, sweetheart. Do you want to go home? I like it here. Helen's nice and the house is pretty, but I miss our apartment and my friends at school. She looked at him with those serious eyes that were too old for a 5-year-old. Are we running away from something? The question hit him harder than it should have. No, we're not running away. Then why did we leave? Because I needed to keep you safe. But you're safe now, so we can go home. That evening, he called Scarlett. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. I'm listening. I work reasonable hours. No more 18-hour days. I need to be there for Maya, pick her up from school, help with homework, put her to bed. That's non-negotiable. Agreed. And I want a written contract guaranteeing that if anything like this happens again, any threats, any danger, I can walk away without penalty, and you'll make sure Maya stays protected. Done. Anything else? Yeah, I want to start in January. Give me a month to get Maya settled back in Brooklyn, find a better apartment, make sure she's okay before I jump into this. That's fair. He could hear the smile in her voice. Welcome to the executive team, Liam. They moved back to Brooklyn 2 days later. The apartment felt smaller than Liam remembered, more cramped and worn. But it was home. Maya ran to her room, checking that all her stuffed animals were still there, relieved to find everything as she'd left it. Mrs. Chen was delighted to see them back. I was getting worried, she said, hugging Maya. The building's not the same without you two. Liam spent the next week apartment hunting. With his new salary, he could afford something in a better neighborhood, still Brooklyn, but a place with heat that actually worked, and windows that didn't stick, and a bedroom for Maya that was bigger than a closet. He found a place in Park Slope, 2 bedrooms, recently renovated, close to a good school. The rent was triple what he'd been paying, but it was still well within his budget. He signed the lease on a Tuesday, moved in over the weekend with help from Mrs. Chen and her son. Maya loved her new room. She spent hours arranging her stuffed animals, organizing her books, making the space hers. Is this because of your new job? She asked that night at dinner. Yeah, I got a promotion, Chikisho. Does that mean you'll be gone more? Actually, it means I'll be around more. Better hours, more predictable schedule. He reached across the table, took her hand. I know things have been scary lately and confusing, but it's going to be better now, I promise. You keep promising things. I know, and I keep following through, don't I? She nodded slowly. Yeah, you do. The week before Christmas, Scarlett invited them to dinner. She'd given Liam her personal address, not the Tribeca apartment, but a brownstone in the West Village that she said she rarely used. You don't have to come if you're not comfortable, she'd said on the phone. I just thought it would be nice to celebrate everything being over and to meet Maya properly. Liam had hesitated, then agreed. They took the subway into Manhattan on a Saturday evening, Maya chattering about school and her new friends and the play they were doing after New Year's. The brownstone was elegant but not ostentatious, the kind of place that whispered old money rather than shouting it. Scarlett answered the door wearing jeans and a sweater, looking more relaxed than Liam had ever seen her. Come in. I hope you're hungry. She'd cooked dinner herself, pasta, salad, bread that was slightly burnt but edible. Maya was shy at first, but Scarlett won her over by asking about the stuffed animals she'd brought and listening to the elaborate backstory for each one. Over dinner, they talked about normal things. Maya's school, the holidays, a movie Scarlett had seen. Nothing about bombs or corporate conspiracies or attempted murder. After Maya fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from talking, Liam and Scarlett sat in the kitchen over coffee. She's wonderful, Scarlett said. You're doing an amazing job with her. I'm trying. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. That's called being a parent. From what I understand, that feeling never really goes away. She cupped her hands around her mug. I've been thinking a lot lately about what Monica said, about there being others, people waiting for their chance to tear me down. You think she was telling the truth? I think she was trying to scare me. But the thing is, she was also right. There will always be people who resent success, who want to take what you've built. She looked at him. I've spent so much time and energy fighting those battles. And I'm tired, Liam. I'm tired of living like I'm constantly under siege. So what are you going to do, Sake? T-E-C? I'm going to stop fighting alone. She set down her mug. I'm building a team. People I can actually trust. Starting with you. Building outward from there. Creating something sustainable instead of just surviving day to day. That sounds healthy. It sounds terrifying. She smiled slightly. I've never been good at trusting people. Letting them in. It's easier to keep everyone at arm's length. Easier, but lonelier. Yeah. She was quiet for a moment. Thank you for showing me there's another way. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, listening to Maya's soft breathing from the other room. Eventually, Liam carried Maya to the car service Scarlett had arranged. She stirred but didn't wake, her head resting against his shoulder the whole ride back to Brooklyn. He started his new job on January 2nd. The office they'd given him was small, but had a window, something he'd never had before. His first week was mostly meetings, with security teams, facilities managers, department heads, learning the scope of his new responsibilities, which were both broader and more interesting than he'd expected. Scarlett was professional during work hours, treating him like any other executive. But sometimes he'd catch her eye across a conference table and see a flicker of something that reminded him of that night in her brownstone. Recognition. Maybe even friendship. The weeks turned into months. Winter gave way to spring. The next-gen crisis faded from the news cycle, replaced by new scandals and emergencies. Park, Victoria, and Monica were all convicted, sentenced to long prison terms. The company's stock recovered. Liam settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Up early to get Maya to school, then to NextGen, where he managed a team of 30 people and actually made decisions that mattered. Home by 6 to help with homework and make dinner. Weekends at the park or museums or just hanging around the apartment. Maya thrived in her new school. Made friends, joined the art club, started asking for a dog. Liam was considering it. In April, on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday, Scarlett called him into her office at the end of the day. Close the door. He did, feeling a familiar flutter of anxiety. But when he turned, she was smiling. I just got word. The board approved the new innovation center. $200 million in funding, exactly what we asked for. That's incredible. It's your incredible. The security protocols you designed, the facility recommendations, they were what convinced the board this was viable. She stood, came around her desk. I wanted to thank you, properly. You already thanked me with the job, the salary, I'm not talking about work. She hesitated, which was unusual for her. I'm talking about showing me that it's possible to trust people again, to let someone see the parts of yourself that aren't polished and perfect. You did that without even trying. Liam didn't know what to say to that. I'm not good at this, Scarlett continued, at being vulnerable, at admitting I need people, but I do. And specifically, I need you to know that what we built here, this partnership, this friendship, it matters to me. It matters to me too. They stood there for a moment, the late afternoon sun streaming through the windows, and Liam thought about how far they'd both come. From that morning when he'd accidentally walked into her office and expected to be fired, to this moment where they stood as equals, partners. Maya's birthday is next week, he said. We're having a party at the apartment. Nothing fancy, just some kids from school and cake. But if you wanted to come, I'd love to. She showed up at the party with a gift that made Maya's eyes go wide. A professional art set, the kind with real canvas and oil paints. For a real artist, Scarlett had said, and Maya had hugged her without hesitation. Watching Scarlett sit on his living room floor playing some elaborate game Maya had invented, Liam realized something. The divide between their worlds, between the billionaire CEO and the single dad, had never been as wide as he'd thought. They'd both been fighting their own battles, trying to protect what mattered most, doing their best with imperfect tools and incomplete information. That night, after the party was over and Maya was in bed, Liam sat in his new apartment and thought about everything that had happened. The threats, and the bombs, and the betrayals. But also the moments of unexpected connection. Scarlett kneeling beside Victoria even after Victoria had tried to destroy her. The way she'd protected Maya without being asked. How she'd looked standing in that flooded boardroom, refusing to back down. He'd learned something through all of this. Something that felt important enough to carry forward. Strength wasn't about being untouchable or invulnerable. It was about getting back up when you got knocked down. About asking for help when you needed it. About trusting people even when you had every reason not to. Scarlett had taught him that. And maybe, in some small way, he'd taught her something too. His phone buzzed. Text from Scarlett. Thank you for including me today. It meant more than you know. He typed back, "Thank you for showing up." That meant everything. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Same time next year? Count on it," he replied. And he meant it, because that was the thing about trust. Once you found it, once you built it with someone through fire and chaos and near-death experiences, you held on to it. You showed up. You kept your promises. You became someone worth believing in. Liam had spent 3 years as a single father, barely scraping by, invisible among the machinery of a world that didn't notice him. Now he was director of facilities and security at one of the most powerful tech companies in the world, raising his daughter in a good neighborhood, building something that felt like a future. But more than that, he'd found something he hadn't even known he was looking for, a sense of purpose that went beyond survival. Proof that you could walk into the wrong room at the wrong time and somehow end up exactly where you needed to be. He thought about Maya, asleep in her room with her new art supplies already organized for tomorrow's creative session. About Scarlett, probably still awake in her brownstone, working on some new project that would change the world. About the life he'd built from the wreckage of what he'd lost. It wasn't perfect. There would be more struggles, more challenges, more moments when he questioned whether he was doing enough or doing it right. That was just life. But he wasn't facing it alone anymore. And neither was Scarlett. That was worth more than any salary, any title, any recognition. Finding people who saw you, really saw you, and chose to stand beside you anyway. That was the thing worth fighting for. Liam finished his coffee, checked on Maya one more time, and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new problems to solve, new fires to put out, new impossible situations that somehow demanded solutions. But he'd learned something valuable through all of this. Sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when ordinary people refuse to accept that they're powerless. When they see something wrong and decide to fix it, even if it's not their job, even if it's dangerous, even if it means stepping outside the comfortable boundaries of who they thought they were. He'd walked into Scarlett Vaughn's office that morning expecting to fix a light. Instead, he'd helped save her life, stopped a conspiracy, and found a purpose he hadn't known he was missing. Not bad for a maintenance guy from Brooklyn. And the best part? The real best part? Maya would grow up seeing that her father was someone who stood up when it mattered, who didn't back down when things got hard, who built something meaningful out of the fragments of a broken past. That was the legacy he wanted to leave her. Not money or status or power, just the understanding that you could be knocked down and still get back up. That you could lose everything and still build something worth having. That strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about being afraid and doing what needed to be done anyway. Outside his window, the city lights glittered against the night sky. Somewhere in those lights, Scarlett was probably still working, still fighting, still building her empire. But now she had people beside her. A team she could trust. A foundation stronger than wealth or power alone. Liam closed his eyes and let himself believe that everything really was going to be okay. Not perfect, not easy, but okay. And sometimes that was more than enough.